Shabbat Shalom. Just a few words about this week's Parsha and the very powerful gesture that it made me think of. Our Torah portion speaks of surely opening our hand. Patoach tiftach. Repetition of the verses in Deuteronomy that tell us that we must open our hands to the needy makes me so grateful for all of the opportunities that I have had in my life, and I pray that you all feel the same way. The times when you are able to patoach tiftach et yadecha, to surely open your hand to those who are needy. To come with open hands, to say, what I have, I can share. That we can lend whatever is sufficient to meet the need. What an absolute blessing to be able to do that. Our ancestors said no one should give so much that they become impoverished. But in fact, the blessing that would return to us by keeping our hands open, kind, and generous, that the blessing would return to us in an uncountable amount. And it isn't just keeping our hands open, it is our hearts as well. Our Torah portion in Deuteronomy 15, verse 7, said specifically, Lo te'ametz et levavcha. Do not harden your heart. Velo tikpotz et yadcha. Not just open your hand, but make sure you do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kin. Now, part of the reason that struck me so much in my soul is because there is a portion of this Torah reading that speaks very openly about the institution of servitude and slavery in the ancient world. And just as I mentioned the blood libel a little earlier, how I wish that the subject of slavery and servitude was one simply of the past that we could read about, learn about, discuss, maybe lament a little bit about, but something that was very much in the past. Well, we know very well that there are entirely too many people in our modern world who are in bondage. There are people in the Jewish world who, when they come to see these texts, actually, maybe understandably, really turn off. Slavery was allowed in the ancient world, therefore I will have no relationship with these texts out of principle. And in fact, we do have several instances spread across the Torah. It's for a deeper dive on another day, but for now, please know or remember that the institution of slavery is mentioned in Exodus, in Leviticus, and in Deuteronomy. This was a fact of the ancient world. The Exodus verses are quite harsh. The Leviticus verses are much more lenient, but rather unrealistic. And a large consensus in the scholars who study these texts is that Deuteronomy is a compromise text, a reconciliation of earlier attempts not to absolutely eradicate servitude and slavery. Some people needed to go into indentured servitude to almost always pay off debts. And that's the juxtaposition in this parsha. We speak first about remission of debts and then about the letting go of slaves. Very important to engage with these texts because from them, of course, as we were reminded, we were slaves in the land of Egypt. I can't prove that for an absolute fact. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about it because the teachings that we come from slaves, not from born aristocrats, but from the lowliest of the low, is supposed to inculcate us with compassion and caring. to keep our hands open, to surely open our hands to the needy. And when it came to slavery, when the slave was set free, your fellow Hebrew man or woman was to serve 6 years, and in the 7th year to have the sabbatical for the rest of their life. He should not go empty-handed. Their hands should be much more full than when they were serving. We were to provide for these male and female fellow Israelite servants out of our own bounty. Their hands were to be full so that they could have the sustenance needed to survive on their own. Because without it, we could be very sure that the cycle of poverty would turn around again, and they would again find themselves needing, as we say in modern parlance, a handout. Those who study the scourge of human trafficking in our time estimate that there are about 27 million people in abject servitude or who are being trafficked at any time in our world. I, on the one hand, pray that it isn't nearly that many, and on the other hand, it's hard to believe it's only that few. But I will certainly take the word of the experts at their value and wrestle with this terrible scourge that still lives with us. So hard with the enormous numbers of causes and issues that are pulling at us for our support. But today I am thinking so much of this ongoing pain that we inflict on other people and our planet, and how easy it is to turn away. In many parts of the world, people are still sold, usually by parents, into debt bondage. It's a form of work that is slavery in all but name. Far too many others are lured into sex trafficking, from which escape is difficult or impossible. And religious groups are often the ones who are in the lead to attempt to look in sacred texts and find provisions to help those who may need our hands out. But we're all closed today, and I know it's a serious subject, is something I learned just in the airport a few days ago. The airport where so many people, millions of people on a daily basis, have packed their bags and look forward to wonderful trips and making family memories. Millions of others are traveling for work, and believe me, are enormously grateful that they can. And far too many others find themselves in airports being moved against their will. So when I was thinking about this gesture that the Torah asks us to do literally and figuratively, to open our hands to the needy, I learned just recently that there is a hand symbol that is used to prevent and ameliorate and relieve the pain of human trafficking. It is a hand gesture that is quiet, and there are signs posted in discrete locations in a number of airports, but it's really actually just starting to be more widespread. It was new during the early COVID days when there was quite a tremendous amount of travel that was being done, but under very perilous circumstances, apparently. And this has expanded for people who are being coerced or forced to travel, that they can go to a person with a badge, an airport worker, and they can do this symbol. It can be done quietly, close to the body. And there are more than 40 organizations across Canada and the United States that are now recognizing this hand signal as a very useful tool against trafficking. I cannot imagine being in a position where I would have to go to a person of authority and using sign language tell them I was in trouble. To imagine being a person who would see such a hand symbol and be able to help a person potentially be released from bondage, it gives me chills. So I want to just close today with encouraging every single one of us who can to come to the world with open hands and open hearts. And should heaven forbid we ever be a person that needs to give or receive this symbol, may we be able to embrace the need and potentially lead a person to the promised land. Shabbat Shalom.